Welcome to the Power of Your Voice. This show is designed to give a speaking platform to individuals that have powerful messages that can touch the lives of others in many ways. My name is Melanie Nelson, and I am the Executive Director for Northwest Victim Services. This episode of The Power of One will focus on bullying. Bullying affects so many individuals globally. Today, we will hear the story of Winter and 6-year-old Misu, who was bullied at one point in their life. Bullying affects children differently, and it is not an issue that should be taken lightly. Welcome to the show, everyone. We'll have everyone introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Mia Carter.
My name is Misu.
Hi, Misu.
Monique Gaylord.
Winter Downing.
Toby Downing.
Welcome, everyone. So today we want to hear the stories of some young people who was bullied. So we'll begin with you, Winter. Winter, can you tell me about your bullying experience when you were in high school and how it affected you?
When I was in high school, like my 9th grade year, I was friends with a group of girls, and the one girl, she didn't like one of my other friends, and she thought that since she didn't like her, that meant that I couldn't be friends with her, even though I knew the girl beforehand. And so it was her birthday, and I posted my one friend for her birthday because she had turned 15 at the time. And the one girl, she went to my other friends and was like, oh, Winter's so fake. She's friends with this girl knowing that I don't like her. And she would try to make all my other friends not like me. And it basically, she went to social media about it, and she would post how fake I am and that nobody else should be my friend. And what I learned from this was that if I don't engage,
Go ahead.
and if I don't engage with her, that she would eventually just stop, because this has been going on for 3 years until this current school year, 12th grade. And when I don't interact with her, she eventually just stopped. So that was good.
Okay, so you're in 12th grade now. So you were bullied in school, and it was also on social media.
Yeah.
How bad did it get on social media?
It got bad enough to where like girls that I don't even associate with knew about the situation, even though it wasn't that big of a deal. But she made it that big of a deal when she would post about it, and she would like throw shots at me on Instagram.
So, okay, so I'm older, and I don't know what that means. So what does it mean to throw shots at someone?
Throwing shots basically means like you're talking bad about them, like you're talking down on them in a negative way, and like you're making it seem like they're a bad person based off of what you're saying. So on the outside looking in, people thought that I was some way that I wasn't, because of how she would like create this fake narrative about me.
Okay, so, and that happened on social media?
Yes.
So let me ask you a question. If she was posting negative things about you on social media, was that an option for you to shut down your social media page so you would not see those negative encounters or her negative posting? Was that an option for you?
Yes. When I told my mom about it, my mom told me to like block her and like block the people who basically would cause any harm to me. So that was an option. I feel like I'm kind of like headstrong, so I didn't want to give her all that power where I delete my Instagram, but I did block her and like some of her friends.
Okay.
About it.
And when you say that power, so I guess from a mother's standpoint, we don't want you to see those negative messages because it creates negative energy within you. So not that you're not headstrong or not that you're not a strong person, but as moms, we don't want you to see those negative comments every day and all day. So how did that affect you every day when you were going to school?
It was kind of weird because at one point we were friends, so it was just like, it kind of made me realize that not everybody is your friend, and that like these friendships from 9th grade, I won't be friends with them in 12th grade. So that was kind of like a wake up call for me, because everybody thinks that, oh, we're going to be the best of friends forever. And then like stuff like that happens.
Okay. Now, are you and this young lady friends today?
No, but she's trying to engage with me more on a friendly level. Like she wasn't harassing me for like 3 years, but it's weird.
Okay. So Mom, when did you become aware of what was taking place with your daughter, and how did you handle it?
So when it got to a point where Winter, we have a pretty open relationship, so she tells me a lot. But like she said, she handles a lot on her own, but it got to a point where she told me. And so I asked her how she felt about it and how she wanted to handle, how she wanted me to be, to support her. Because my first reaction, like you mentioned, was to get all in the middle, not with the young lady, but to let the school know. And, you know, we talked about it, and instead of escalating it, because it seemed simple and minor, I encouraged her to not engage her, to ignore her, but to keep me informed if things on the other side escalated, if threats started, if things like that started to happen, which it never got to that point where physical threats started.
Yeah, so it
I
wasn't
mean,
physical.
right.
But you didn't call the principal and you didn't get the school involved.
I did not,
Okay.
because we talked about it, and Winter, and
Oh,
I get involved in the school a lot for a lot of things.
Yes.
And,
As mom should.
right.
Right.
And I'm also a believer that sometimes adults can make certain things worse.
Okay.
And this sounded like something that was really minor.
Okay.
In terms of the root of it.
Right.
But I monitored it. You know, I made sure I was really on Winter to not participate, and that if she started to post things back, that it wouldn't just be one-sided. It would be
Right.
the both of them doing
Okay.
it. And so I really was making that clear to Winter that it could start out with you feeling bullied, and then it could be the both of you
Right.
then
Right.
doing it, right?
Okay. So, Monique, you being a certified counselor for K through 12th grade, and sometimes parents get the teachers involved and get the principals involved and the counselors involved. And my oldest son was actually bullied, and it was verbal. And they wanted to have the person who was bullying my son, their parent, myself, and my son. I personally did not think that was a good idea.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why. When we leave the school, and then my son has to walk home by himself, and then the person who he, let's say, told on, or is the term snitched, which that's not the real term of a snitch, but if that happens, then is he in more danger when he's walking home from school? So tell me how we deal with that situation in the schools and how we keep the children safe, because if the children say something and then the person who's bullying them, then it escalates even more. So how do we deal with that as educators and trying to help our children?
So that is a very touchy situation, because you want to make sure that, you know, people put on their best presentation of themselves when they're in meetings with their parents and other people of authority in the school, right? And we know that that can kind of turn. So one of the things that I have done when I was working with STS programs is, if we did have conversations with both the parents and the children, we would also put an action plan in place to figure out what time do you normally leave school. I mean, first we would have to figure out how involved the situation is. You know, what was the antecedent behaviors, what's really going on with this situation. And then we would put that action plan in place. So it might involve, you know, what time do you normally get out of school? Do we need to have an extra staff person walk you to X, Y, and Z corner? Do we need to get your parent involved to come pick you up from school? Do you have any supports in school, whether it be not just parents, but a supportive system like your school? Are you involved in any type of extracurricular activities? You know, things like that, to figure out how we can keep these individuals separated if need be. It might even be something, depending on the nature of the situation, where we can bring those two together and kind of hash out their differences. It really just is dependent.
Okay, and you said STS?
Yes, so STS stands for School Therapeutic Services.
Okay, okay.
When I was working in that capacity.
Okay, all right. And Mia, so tell me about playtime for Misu when he's playing in the playground. So has Misu had any bad encounters?
I've noticed twice that he had a couple of bad encounters, one right after the other on the same morning, where he was in the yard and he was playing, and a little girl pushed him down, and staff got involved and, you know, told the little girl to stop. and he was crying and told me he was sad. So I hugged him and I told him I'm happy he didn't fight her back. And then right after that, two bigger girls was pulling stickers off of his face, being mean. So that's when I told the little girls, don't do that, that's not nice. And he came to me again crying, and I hugged him again and I told him it would be okay. And, you know, it just upset him a lot because he's not used to that.
Right, right. And so let's speak about that. So these behaviors can make someone sad. So now, would you say that that's bullying if it happened once? And Misu's in what grade?
First.
He's in first grade. So would you say that Monique, that would be bullying? And again, we're not discounting that. Of course, that makes somebody sad. If somebody came over and pushed me, then I would be sad. But those are the situations that we were speaking about, like with mom. Is it something that the children can work out themselves? So how would you classify that if it's a one encounter incident, and with the girls who were pulling the stickers off, that's a one encounter incident as well, but it still makes the person feel bad.
It makes
So
them feel
how
very
would you
bad. And there's another situation. I would want to bring those children in, those young ladies. I want to bring Misu in, and again, figure out what is going on. And especially in the first grade, how are we socializing? You know, talking about behaviors. How do we play? Why are we playing like this? It could be, if it's a repeated offense over and over again, it could be a bully situation. It could be, unfortunately, we like Misu and this is how we want to play with him. But understanding and getting the other individuals to understand, whether it was them or Misu on them, this isn't how we play. We don't put our hands on each other. We don't put our feet on each other, you know, different things like that. And then making sure that we're keeping a good watch over what the situations are. If this is manifesting into something else, keeping the parents involved as well, especially in the first grade, because you kind of want to nip those behaviors in the bud.
Right, right. And you said the teachers were involved.
Yes, they
Okay,
were.
so that's good. And Winter, today, we're dealing with things so much differently. Like when your mom and I were in school, we didn't have social media. We had beepers. So there was no way that we could, there was no way we could bully each other. Like Winter's looking at me like, what is a beeper? Do you know what a beeper is? Okay. So we had this little black pager. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so if somebody wanted you, they would actually page your little black box. It wasn't even a phone. You couldn't do anything with it. So you would see the number on it and say, oh, such and such wants me to call them. So you would go to the payphone. See, we had payphones back then too. We didn't have cell phones, and so we didn't have all of this stuff. So if we were bullied, it was physical in school and things in that nature. So we didn't have any of the computers and anything that you can do on the phone and things in that nature. So, but I do know that bullying, again, we have the cyberbullying and then we have the bullying in school. What advice would you give to some young people who's being bullied, whether it's in school or whether it's on social media?
I would just think that, well, for me personally, I felt it was really effective when I would just like block the person, like if it's on social media, because they can't really do anything, and it's just after you block them, it's over with. And most of the times, like when they take it to social media, when they see you in person, they don't say anything to you. So I feel like when you don't engage with someone, they just realize that, oh, well, she doesn't even care, so I'm just gonna stop. That's what I found, especially people in like my age group. Like if you don't give them the reaction they want, they just stop because they're irrelevant to you.
Okay, so tell me something. How did your dad react to that? I know men are a little different, and when my son was being bullied, my husband's reaction was totally different than mine. So mine was more subtle, and my husband is old school. So his advice to my son, I was not a fan of, but that was probably how he was raised, which is not a bad thing. Right. But that was just his way of thinking. So tell me how your dad viewed the situation and what was his advice to you?
My dad, his thing is like, oh, well, don't let the girls get too close, so you got to defend yourself. It's all like kind of like physical. Like he thinks that like I was going to get like jumped or something. He goes to that. My mom was more like, oh, do you need me to come up there to the school, talk to the parent, like stuff like that. But my dad is more self-defense kind of.
Okay.
And like it was not so much talking it out, more like just defending myself if things was to escalate to like anything physical.
Okay.
So-
All right. And I can understand Dad's point of view for him to want you to be safe and for you to want you to defend yourself. And that was kind of my husband's take on it too with my oldest son. So Toby, tell me how you reacted to your husband's point of view.
So I feel like I'm a buffer on
Okay.
a lot of those kinds of conversations. So I'm often encouraging Winter, and I have a son, when Dad gets in the middle, like, let's not escalate it if it's not
Right.
already there.
Right.
Let's not bring it to that place. When, particularly because in Winter's case, there hadn't been any physical threat. Now, we know that sometimes the emotional impact could be just as bad.
Right.
And so I was more frustrated with the access that social media gives you to each other.
Right,
The nonstop
right.
access.
Right.
Once you leave school, like you said, when you left school, it ended for the night.
Right.
And then maybe it picked back up the next day. But with social media, it's nonstop.
It's nonstop.
And
right.
so I've had many frustrated conversations, even fussing at Winter with
Right.
the social media piece. And so that was more of my focus was on getting a hold of that and encouraging her not to engage and start trading insults and
Right,
doing
right.
the back and forth.
Right, exactly.
And telling my husband, her dad, okay, let's not do that.
Right.
We don't
Which is
want both of
important.
them to be
Right, which is important. But and then-
offenders.
Right, exactly. And Monique, and that's the real conversation. We have that. We have some parents that will tell their children to resort to that method.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I was coming up, I wouldn't say that I was a punk, but I wasn't an aggressor. And I was very non-confrontational, right? But my mom had to kind of put into my head, if they hit you, you hit them back, right? Is it necessarily the best advice? Maybe or maybe not. You know, it kind of depends. But in today's time and age, you know, we have to be very careful because there's such a thing as imminent danger. You might have meant to defend yourself against this person, and then next thing you know, you've defended yourself to the point where now this person is injured, this person is in a possibly deathly state, and how do you really go about explaining that story? So you try to intervene and prevent as much as possible. So that we don't have to get to those points.
Right. And bullying is major. And it's a major issue. And it is affecting so many children today. So what advice would you have for those children who wasn't like a Winter, and thank goodness her situation was not elevated. Misu's situation was not elevated to where it was physical and someone got injured, but sometimes it is that way. And then it is sometimes that children do not tell that they're being bullied. And they internalize this, and we know that can be very traumatic. And it could go down another road for some children who are bullied. So tell us, what advice do you have for those children that are bullied and they cannot handle this stuff mentally? And what resources do you have for them?
Number one thing is you have to tell your parents or your guardian, someone that you trust. There has to be someone that you trust, that you can tell your story to and let them know. Because once you decide that you're going to hold it all in, you know, it can be that hair that gets onto the camel's back, and the next thing you know, everything is out of control. So you definitely have to get in touch with somebody that you trust. If it is a situation in school, and especially the Philadelphia School District, you have the Office of Climate and Safety, and they have a phone number as well. They work very closely with the principals. They work very closely with the vice principals. Oftentimes, I know especially in the middle and high schools, they have climate officers that you can speak with. Everything is and should be very confidential. But if you want to reach out to them yourselves, the telephone number for that is 4870. And you can also go down to 440 North Broad Street to the School District of Philadelphia main office and speak to them personally. If you don't want to go the school route, there also is the Stop Bullying Now hotline. That is a helpline set up by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and their telephone number is 1-800-273-8255.
Okay. Now, what about the child who is afraid to come forth? Because we'll say, speak to your parent, speak to a teacher. But in reality, there are some children that internalize this and they don't, they're afraid. So the person who's bullying them will say, don't tell, I'm going to hurt you. How do we reach those children? Because that's real. How do we reach those children?
I think from an adult standpoint, it's very important for us to be connected and in tune with our children, our biological children. If we're in a profession where we're working with youth, like now I'm a tree hugging social worker. I work with children and youth, and I pay attention to just body language. I pay attention to answers and different things like that. What are you not telling me? What else do we need to, and I may pry a little bit, respectfully, I may pry a little bit. And I may have that conversation with their parent, and I may even role play with their parent on how we can kind of bring this information out for their child.
Okay. Before Winter told you that she was being bullied, did you see those signs in her body language? Did you see those signs, and was she staying in her room more? So did you see a change in her before she came to you and told you that she was being bullied?
I didn't see a change, just that she was frustrated. And so I think I appreciate what Monique is saying, is that we have the benefit of a really good relationship. So she shares a lot with me, sometimes more than I want to know. And
Which is good.
Right, which is good.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
That's really good.
And so I trusted her assessment of how serious it was because of that.
Which is important, because
right.
sometimes, like you said, we'll
Right.
get involved, and she's like, Mom, I have this, so we could make the situation
Right.
worse sometimes. So that's great that you entrusted your daughter and for her to handle this situation. Yeah. My son, it was so hurtful to watch my son. My son wouldn't smile. It was so hurtful. He got jumped twice, once going to school and once coming home from school. And so one of the guys just started hitting him. And he said, I don't even know you. Why are you doing this? You know how much that hurts a mom, that I'm not there to protect you. And the one time he got jumped coming home from school, my husband had just pulled up from work, and I'm sitting on a porch talking to one of my neighbors. And then as soon as he pulls up on the block, I hear this car like speeding off. And I'm saying, well, what is wrong with this car? And where is it going? And it's my husband speeding down the block. So my son had called him, and he said, Dad, I just got jumped. Can you come? So my husband goes to where he is, which wasn't far. He was not far from, his high school was not far from where we lived. So my husband gets out the car. He's old school. So here it is, this group of guys, and my husband has his son, our son, right there, and he says, okay, point him out. But my son did not point him out. He said, I don't see him, Dad. So that's the catch-22. If he would have pointed that young man out, my husband would have been, 1, either in jail, or 2, probably dead. Because it was a group of these young men. But my husband was going to protect his son. So there's so many aspects to this. It is a whole lot of layers, and we can't fault my husband for going down to want to protect his son. But there's no doubt in my mind that it just would not have been a happy ending, but he was going to protect his son. So those are the kind of conversations that we need to have to how do we protect these young people. And my son was afraid to tell my husband, this is the guy that did it. So this is, and then it hurt my son to smile. So it was for his 4 years in high school that my son was broken. He was bullied in junior high school and he was bullied in high school. So my son, I believe to this day, still does not trust too many people because of that. He comes from a loving household, but because of that experience, he still has those reservations on who he can trust because of what happened to him. So, Monique, can you give us those numbers again for
Sure.
people?
So you have the Stop Bullying Now hotline. Again, it's a hotline set up by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The telephone number for that is 1-800-273-8255. You also have the School District of Philadelphia Climate and Safety Office at 440 North Broad Street, and the telephone number for that is 215-400-4870.
Okay, good. Misu, do you have a good time playing on the playground now? And you have fun with your friends? That's good. And I'm glad Mom is there to protect you and to help you. So I'm so glad that you're having fun on the playground now. All right, Winter, any last thoughts for our young people?
No, I mean, just, I don't know, like just block people, ignore people, and speak up, I guess.
That's powerful
Yeah.
to speak up, to tell people to speak up. Now, do you have any friends that are bullied?
I have friends who were bullied in middle school, not so much high school. It's kind of like a safe space. Really, nobody really gets physically bullied. It might be like verbal, but a lot of people don't realize what bullying is, so they just think it's just like normal. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Power of One. If you are a victim of bullying, or if you know someone who is being bullied, please communicate with your parents, teacher, or with an adult you know and trust. Please remember you are important, you are special, and you are unique. Your voice matters. You could be the one to change the world. The power of one starts with you. Thank you for joining us.